that I can be silent and you're still like, what's he
Hey,
about to say? I have you.
I
I
got
can do
you.
whatever I want on stage now.
Greetings, everyone. Come on in and have a seat up front for the Funny Muscle Podcast. If you're here, then you're looking to learn how to create laughs like a pro. So please help me welcome to the stage your co-host to help you do that, economics professor and open micer Chris Stifler and comedian turned author Mike Lucas.
We're very pleased to have today with us a guest who has just released his first special on YouTube called Blended Feathers. I got a chance to watch it. Chris got a chance to watch it, and we enjoyed it and invited him on the podcast. And his name is Michael Pasvar. So first of all, tell us how long have you been doing comedy? Where are you from? And what got you started in this business?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm from the Dallas area. Grew up in like the suburbs of Dallas, and I have been doing comedy, I would say a combined for about 13 years now, maybe 14. I started when I was in college. I went to the University of Oklahoma and started going to like open mics in college because I was a theater major.
Wow.
So it was always something that like I kind of wanted to do. I thought about doing it, when I was in high school, things like that. And then finally, I think it was 21 when I started going to open mics, and then moved back to Dallas after college with like the hopes of eventually going to like LA, doing the whole acting thing, maybe doing comedy as well. Didn't end up doing that, and then worked pretty heavily in the Dallas scene until about 2013 ish, and then just stopped doing it. I never said like, "Hey, I'm quitting." It just kind of life kind of happened. I was married. We were having our first kid. I volunteered a lot for this organization where I coached kids in youth sports, and then also my other career was kind of starting to build a little bit. And then 2016, I was like, man, I got to do comedy again. So started doing it again, and have been just doing it strong since then. So I say about 13, 14 years all total.
With that, in a 3-year break, you're talking to somebody who took a 10-year break from his career, and people think that it's like riding a bike where you get right back into it and you pick up where you left off. And I would disagree. It was rough when I got back into it. It took me a good year to find my legs again. How about you? Was it hard to get back into it after 3 years?
Yeah, it was super. What was hard and what I didn't realize was hard is that so I didn't want to just start hitting up old connections and being like, "Hey, put me on this show." You know what I mean? Like I haven't done comedy in 3 years,
Yeah.
so I just started hitting mics. Well, at open mics, you're getting 3, maybe 5 minutes tops. So once I started getting, after about a year of doing that, I started reaching out to actual shows. And the first weekend that I worked, doing a 15-minute set felt like I just ran a marathon.
Yeah.
Like I was exhausted.
Out of breath.
I was out of breath. You know what I mean? And I remember the feedback I kind of got from the club was like, "Hey, like it was okay." You know what
Yeah.
I mean? But it was there was definitely some
Right.
shaky
Some
moments.
rust was showing.
Yeah, and I
Yeah.
told him, I was like, I think that's a completely fair feedback. I was
Yeah.
like, because I felt that way. I think, at that time, as the place that I was at was a Thursday, Friday, Saturday run. So it was 5 shows. I think by like early show Saturday, I felt okay. But those first 3 shows, I was just it took a little bit.
It's when you pull like when you pull a lawnmower out of the shed, then you start it a first time after 3 years. It's like, it takes a while for the engine to get sweet.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, it's an interesting special that you did, and it sounds like that you've culminated from that to figuring out how to put all that together into a special. What was the journey to figuring out from just being funny and getting a crowd to laugh to beginning to be funny for a reason, which is for you, we call it a comedy lens, but the brand you have is sort of half American, generational American, half Iranian, which is sort of the blended feathers that come together. It's a really cool lens to have because immediately it identifies you, immediately it makes you different than other people that I've seen. And to be honest, in the current political mess we're in, it brings a face to an event or to a happening that I sort of have a general idea of without a face to it yet, and it gives your face to it. I don't know if that makes sense, but what led you to begin to see that lens, that angle?
I put something out like a year and a half ago. I did like a half-hour special on open bar, and that was kind of that was 30 minutes of just jokes that I was ready to retire. There was no theme to it. There
Right.
was no I mean, there were a few things that were themed to, but it was very sophomoric. Like a lot of that material was written from a place of like when I was like 25 to maybe 30. And so with this one, I really wanted to tell a story. So I wanted it to come off as one through line throughout the entire thing. And that it felt like there was a start, a middle, and an end. And I wanted it to all tie together. And that was like the biggest thing that I kept working on for the past about year and a half or so. So the main joke of like where the title of the special comes from, I started doing that joke maybe 7 or 8 years ago, but it never really fit into anything that I was doing.
Yeah.
So I didn't do it that often, right? And I had talked with the people that produced my podcast, or not my podcast, the special I'm a fan of, Travis Wright. We talked a lot about doing this like 4 or 5 years ago. We talked about doing this special. And I knew I wanted to call it Blended Feathers. And I'm very glad that we didn't do it 5 years ago, because at that time, if we would have done it 5 years ago, it just would have been 45 minutes of an hour to an hour of just random material with that joke thrown in there.
Yeah.
So after, the open bar thing happened, which I was super blessed for that to happen and super happy that they approached me about recording something with them. I knew that I was still going to do the thing with I'm a Fan of, and I knew what it was going to be called, but I was like, I need to change what the material is like. So I want it to all mix together. What can that theme be, and what will it end up being? And to me, it was like, okay, the Blended Feathers is like you talked about, was coming from like the half Iranian, half generational American. One side of me is this son of an immigrant, this first generational American. The other side of me, my mother's side of the family, has roots all the way back to the American Revolutionary War. We're direct descendants to Andrew Jackson, right? But then this other side is like, we're just here. We just started, right? And so how did that make me feel? How did that impact my life growing up? And so I just started kind of thinking about the different things that happened in my life. Like, right, where to me, growing up, technically, in the technical sense, Iranians are Aryan race. They are Caucasian. They are white, right? But the world does not perceive Iranians as white. So my life spent a lot of time at 12, 13, 14, 15, 16 years old, arguing with adults that I was white. And anytime that I was arguing with them that I was white, it was them telling me that I'm not white, as if not being white was a negative thing.
Right.
Right. And so how did that shape me growing up? Well, a lot of that shaped me growing up of starting to resent the Iranian side. I didn't want people to know I was Iranian, because anytime that I would say I'm white, like, you're not white. What are you talking about? So it made me uncomfortable growing up and made me feel out of place and stuff like that. So I was like, well, what things did I do in life that made me awkward, and how can I write about this? And that's where the whole kind of story came to.
Yeah, I like that. I come from Cleveland, and for a long time I was ashamed of the fact that I grew up in a city that once, had a river that burned. And eventually I came to love it. And it reminds me of your story of your Iranian culture, where at first you don't want to be known for it, and then you realize it's like one of the most interesting things about you, right?
Yeah, it's the best part, right? Like, it's like,
and that's what I teach, and I coach comics, and that's what I often teach these newer comics, which is that the things that are most interesting about you might be boring to you because you've talked about them or thought about them a lot. And but to other people who don't know you and can't differentiate you from anyone else in the world, these are the things that peg you and make you special and are worth talking about and worth joking about, especially if they give you any kind of an emotion. That's what comedy is basically a heightening of your emotions, emotional reaction to the world around you. I love the story of that, and I love that you had a special that was a bunch of random things together, a bit of a special, and then you had an official special where you fixed that and you made that into what we would now recognize as an actual special. Because if you don't have that theme, if you don't have that overriding brand on the special, it's not sellable, it's not marketable in terms of the business sense. And so I was going to ask you about that. Now that that special's out, has that helped you as somebody who's a business person booking themselves as a comic? Now that you have that to reference to people, can you get more gigs as a headliner? Are you able to attract more attention to clubs, or is it too soon to tell?
I'm hoping.
This is all like, yeah. Well, you just came out, right? Oh
Yeah,
my
it just came out. It's 2 weeks old.
Okay, yeah. So
Man, I sure am. I sure am hoping. I think that is
that's the goal.
The whole hope and the goal. I did get bumped to headliner at a club to like the week after it came out. I was on the road and I played that club before. And when I showed up, they're like, "Hey, if you kind of push the headliner a little bit, we'll talk about the next time you come back being headliner." And
Nice.
so when we discussed Saturday after the shows, he's like, "Yeah, man." He's like, "I'll bump you up to headliner, at very least co-headliner. Let's talk dates." So that's the hope. That's the goal. I have been lucky enough the last, couple of years. I headline a lot on one-nighters on the road a lot. There are a couple of very small clubs that have let me headline full weekends. And then a lot of the local clubs give me one-nighters, which is great. And so that's the hope, is that I can package this and more clubs will start to allow me to headline, right? And so it's not just one-nighters giving me full weekends, stuff like that.
Well, in their defense, the whole key nowadays in the modern business package that comedy clubs go with, it's about packing the club. It's about
Absolutely.
a fan base. It's about how many followers do you have and how many people are you going to bring to that in that city to that club.
Absolutely.
And that we never really, back in the day, it was the job of the comedy club to attract a local audience, and then the reputation of the comedy club was such that we're only going to hire the best comics for you. So when you come to see our show, it'll be the best show you could possibly see. Who are they? Don't worry about that. Trust us. We'll you don't know them, but you're going to know them soon. And it was like that. That's sort of how we did it. And it was up to the club to do that. And now it's almost completely up to the comics to bring their own audience. And that puts a lot of pressure on us to do things like this, to create a special in order to attract a fan base, and then to pull clips. So I've noticed that a lot, Michael. I like your strategy of pulling clips off of your special and sharing those on social media slowly as the weeks go by. I noticed you've done that. Does that give you traction? Is that increasing your fan base?
I think my followers have gone up almost 100 since the special came up.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's not a huge number, but it's a number that's going up, right?
Yeah.
And so I'm hoping, here's the thing, is that I've been in my head a lot about it the last 2 weeks. I'm very stressed about it. I'm very I want the numbers to be a certain number. And it's not even necessarily for myself. I want it for the team of people that put so much effort into this and made it so good. I think the comedy on it is good. I think what the people that produced it, that I'm a fan of, Travis Wright, was great. So I think I want people to see what he put into it, what his team put into it. And so hopefully, well, hold on, I'm rambling a little bit. I'm hoping that more people will see it, but what I will tell you this is, more than anything, I'm just happy with the responses that I've got from people.
Happy with it?
Yeah. I mean, a lot of people have told me very, very nice things. A lot of people that I respect in comedy, not just like, obviously you want, strangers and, people that are watching it to like it, but there's been so many people that are in comedy that have said very nice things about it. So,
Good.
so far, I think it's doing what it's supposed to do, and it makes you a little bit excited. Hopefully it'll continue to grow so that I can get the things, like you said, have people that will come buy tickets right now. Because that's really all that matters, unfortunately.
Well, yeah. What I say is that comics have 5 tools that have to be specials at. We're writers, we're performers, we're directors, we're travelers, and we're business people. And we have to get good at all 5 of those. And you're talking about the 5th tool, which is being a good business person. And in the modern world, that involves social media, that involves a website, an electronic press kit. It involves emails and texts and thank you letters and things that we just didn't have the ability to do back in the day before the internet and before we had all this connection together. So being your own business person is so important, and that's I'll bet you're discovering that even more so now that you have a tool to do that with. You have a great and I have to say it was really well produced. I agree with you. The lighting was great, the sound was great. You could hear the audience. The editing was spot on. I couldn't notice anything that was off. So kudos to that company that did that. That's always a nice feeling when they take the raw product and turn it into something you can share and you're proud of.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, even just okay. So the place that we did it at was a very pretty theater. But
where did you do that at, by the way?
At the NAC Theater in downtown Frisco.
Okay.
So it's a very pretty space, but what I'm a fan of did to transform it was night and day difference. We went into the theater in November. We filmed it December 6th. We went, I think it was like the second week of November. We went to do like a test shot with the cameras. I get a text message from Travis, and he's like, "Hey, bud, look at these pictures." He's like, "I think it looks fine, but I want to try some things. Just trust me." And I said, "All right, cool." And then when I showed up the day of the shoot to do our lighting test and our sound check and all that stuff, it looked like a whole new space.
Yeah.
I mean, they put in curtains, they changed the lights, they did, it was just.
And you did a fast forward of that in the beginning of the special, didn't you? Like to show the morphing of it. Am I wrong?
I made a post.
That's what I saw. I saw that where you showed that, like the difference between what it used to look like and what they made it look like.
I showed a post of the picture of the day that we did the camera test back in November, where I'm sitting on a stool, and then I showed a picture of me sitting on the same stool in the same space with how they transformed it.
It was great.
Again,
big difference.
Can you translate that into like lessons for young comics? Like, do you cut down do you lower the ceiling? Do you cut down half with Kurt? Like what translate it into lessons if you're even presenting to a group for 30 people in a town hall meeting, or what would you say that you learned from that?
For like that specific the specific,
or just general presenters in general. Maybe they're just talking to a political presenter or a young comic that's setting up an open mic, or is there any sort of like translatable lessons from that?
Yeah, absolutely. You need to set the space up to make it fit for what you're doing. If you've got 300 chairs in there and only 30 people are going to show up, and if those chairs are removable, take the chairs out.
Yeah.
Make them sit next to each other. Make them sit close. Like we've all done, anyone that's done comedy has done shows in front of 10 people, right? Or less. And there are times where if it's sat correctly and you have those 10 people all next to each other, all close in, it feels like you're doing a show for 150 people.
Yeah.
So like those, things like that are huge. Any showrunner, any producer of a comedy show, any club, they can do certain small things that seem like, why are they such sticklers about this? But if they do it, it changes. There's a club in Dallas. I won't say the name of it, but it's one of them that's been around forever. That's one of the best things about them. They are so strict on how they seat their rooms.
Yeah.
But because they are strict on it, it makes every show that much better. Right? Like they train, because I worked for the club. I was a door guy for the club 15 years ago, 16, longer than that, 18. What year is it? 2000, 17 years ago, right? And they literally, part of our training was how to seat people. We, and So those little small things make a big difference. And like with my special, Travis was in good. It's a good thing I had him because he would keep me in check about like, hey, you're very worried about the night of the filming, which I understand that you want to put on a good show for everyone, those 200 people that are going to be at the show, and you're very, very focused on that. But let me change this, this, and this because do you want a better special or do you want a better night?
Right.
And we might have to change because, like, I'll give you an example of one of the things was I have a theater background, so I'm making it. I want it to be a full-on performance from start to finish. When they walk in, there was certain music I wanted to be played. When this happens, they want that. Like, right, I had all things about the night of the show that I wanted to happen. And one of the things was I wanted to make this video that played either right before I went on stage or right before the opener went on because I wanted it to get the theme of the show going and the mood of the show going, right? So what I wanted was I was going and it was going to be like little Easter eggs. And you kind of see it we kind of did it a little bit in the intro of the video, but I wanted there to the intro of the actual special. I wanted the people to see like I was going to show like different spots that I talk about in the special, right? Mm-hmm. So there was going to be a picture of my grandmother's house. There was going to be a picture of the house that my dad grew up in, like all these different things that that I was going to talk about. And then the show was going to start. Well, since we put the curtains up, the curtains were going to block the projector screen. So we couldn't do the video. So he goes,
but those curtains make a big difference.
Absolutely.
And he asked the lighting on top of the curtains and that sets the mood.
And so he asked me, he goes, we're going to do what you want to do. He's like, but do you care more about that night or do you care more about the special?
Interesting.
And I said, well, the special, obviously, that's what we're doing all this for. And he goes, I'm glad that's the way you answered it. I was hoping you would answer it that way. He's like, then we can't do then we don't do the video. And I was like, all right, cool. Right. So there was things like that, having that lens to help with changing the whole thing. And then we were able to do a few things in the intro video of the actual special that kind of spoke to that a little bit. So it all worked out really well.
When I saw the difference between what the theater looked like without it and what it looked like with it, I thought it was like, it's like the difference between a dude's apartment and a chick's apartment.
Yeah.
And it was like, it's just better. It just like, it had a mood to it. It's like, would you like candles or something? This is great.
Yeah. It was a huge difference, wasn't it? Like, I mean,
okay. So I wanted to, do you have any more questions, Chris? I was going to break down.
I was curious, speaking of your comedy lens, Mike's methodology breaks down your comedy lens into 3 words. If you had to describe your persona, your comedy persona on stage in 3 words, what is your
storyteller?
Like a storyteller would be more your delivery style.
Okay.
Like your lens to me involves the meeting of immigration, the immigrant and the American clashing together.
Okay.
Because it not only formed you as like your parents formed that of you, but also you have a mixed marriage, I believe, right? You have brought that another generation down. So the idea of the mixed cultures would be a big part of your lens. If I was coaching you, I would say that to me is a big deal in your comedy, and at least now, like from that special.
For sure.
It was interesting because I could tell that you applied that lens to every one of these topics, which is what we want to do as a comic is we want, because otherwise, we could all talk about the same topic and it would be the same joke, but because you have a very original and unique lens, you can bring your own take to that topic.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't know. Yeah, that's a big part of it, right? Some of it's insecure. Like, was it, a place from insecurity?
Yeah.
It makes you vulnerable.
Yeah, a lot of it was interesting is, a lot of my people that I've known for a long time, watch the special. I was talking to one of my friends about it that I used to work, or I still work with her. And she was like, man, I liked all these different things that you talked about. I've seen you do comedy many years, but this was different. I said, yeah, a lot of it came from places of insecurity.
Yeah.
right? Like with my insecurities that I grew up with. And she's like, that's so funny. She's like, I would have never thought that you're insecure. I was like, oh yeah, I'm very insecure, right? Like
Yeah,
it's
that it
and
doesn't read that way. It's funny that you mentioned that, because one of the things that I really teach is about emotion. And it's kind of a classic take, which is a premise is a topic plus an emotion, and that's sort of where we as comics begin. And insecurity is definitely a form of an emotion. And
yeah,
so it's some people are very overt with their emotions, and they say, I'm angry, I'm insecure. And other people, it's implied and it's sort of shown. And I think you're more of that realm, where I think it is underneath your bits and within, tucked in your lens. So I
mhm,
think that's an interesting take, that woman felt the same way, where she's like, what? You're not
yeah,
insecure. Like, yes, I
yeah.
am.
Yeah, absolutely. It's like, well, I can hide it really well. I'll say I'm very secure in like my
Yeah.
abilities of how
Right.
I can do things. I was like, but there's like an insecurity of that, you know, how am I going to be perceived? There's a
Yeah.
lot of it, right?
That's where it's relatable. Like I've been insecure, and I've not felt comfortable about things in my world. And so, instead of pissing and moaning about it, I want to laugh about it. And that's
Yeah,
what your special does, is gives us a permission to laugh at the insecurity of life. It's interesting. Well, I wanted to look at, if it's cool with you, I wanted to look at a couple of your bits and
absolutely.
break them down with what the terminology that I use in my books, to just in a nutshell, is number one, we talked about the comedy lens, which is something that we just talked about, and that's the first step I always teach my new students, which is sort of to be clear on their comedy lens, so that their comedy becomes from an original place. And that way you can talk about a similar topic, and it comes off differently because you're doing it from your angle. And I think you're very clear on your comedy lens, even if you can't voice it right now. I can tell by your material, because honestly, you could call your lens the insecure blended feather. And as far as what that, like, that makes sense to you, and it's for writing. It's not, you don't tell people what your comedy lens
Yeah,
is. Just sort of, it's what you use as a writing tool. And so most comics don't tell the audience what they're, you never hear Jerry Seinfeld say, I make a big deal out of nothing. But
yeah,
that's his lens. But he never tells you that. He shows you that over and over again. And that's what I think you do. You're not one of those guys that necessarily announces that out loud. Although I have to say that your first few bits does that really nicely. And this was a compliment I was going to give you, as a teacher. I always want to teach my comics that in the beginning of their set, they should be doing jokes that very quickly announce what their comedy lens is, who they are, why they're different than other comics. And you do that really nicely. And you do that with premise, setup, punchline, which is what the sort of the methodology we use to write a joke. And then we hit them with a surprise or a punchline using one of the 36 humor heightening devices to get a laugh. And it sort of still satisfies that setup, but it surprises them. And it's a real technical way to, what we call it, dissecting the frog, where you really look at how a joke is created, and you can break it down. And I did that with a couple of your jokes here, and I wanted to just run that by you and show you what I came up with,
okay,
and ask you sort of what your thought process was in creating these jokes. The first one I wanted to look at was, this is your joke about Americans versus immigrants, about parenting. And
okay.
this is sort of the first joke you do, besides how you doing, thanks for being here, sort of your welcoming to the crowd. So this is
My mom is from Louisiana and my dad is from Iran. So basically, like half of me voted for Trump. And the other half was bombed by Trump.
So the premise you have is, basically you say, I tell you a little bit about me. That's your premise. Here's who I am. And if you can get that across in a nutshell, the audience really appreciates that. And so you do that. You say, my mom is from Louisiana, my dad is from Iran. And this is something we call reinterpretation. There's this and there's that, so you know what that means. And then that's a heightening device that we use in order to get a laugh that sort of paints the picture of who we are. So you could say I'm half Irish, I'm half Lithuanian, and you know what that means. So this is your version of that, and it's real creative and fun, and it really paints the picture of who you are using funny specifics and recognition, which is two more heightening devices that we use. So let's listen to it.
So basically, like half of me voted for Trump, and the other half was bombed by Trump.
You're really great at giving the crowd time to laugh. One thing I coach my new students, which is they rush, they're like memorizing the material, so they rush through it. And what you do is you let the audience piece together a lot of your material, and in that they get a bigger laugh, and you don't cut off your own laughter. So I thought that was really great, and that's a 3-line joke. Tell you a little bit about me. My mom's from Louisiana. My dad's from Iran. So basically half of me voted for Trump. The other half was bombed by Trump. And that's a classic format, premise, setup, punchline. And it gets across your comedy lens, and it uses funny specifics and recognition by using that reinterpretation. So to me, that's a great opening joke to use. How did you, like, is that one of the first ones you've written? Did it come that way to be your first joke, or it just made its way to that spot?
What was hard is that I did the same opening bit for like almost a decade.
Before that, a different opening.
Yeah, a different opening bit. And my wife came, and it was part of my merch that I used to sell a long time ago. It's what my first special is called. My first special is called "I Like Your Jesus," and nice. And that it was part of that bit. And my wife came to a show. This was like maybe 5 years ago, and she's like, "If I hear you tell those jokes one more time," she's like, "I will boo." And she's like, "I will boo." She didn't come to shows very often. She would come to like one show a year or something. Maybe, right?
And she was sick of it.
Yeah, and she's like, I was like, I know. I was like, well, one, it's my merch, and she's like, I'll buy the rest of the merch. I was like, I'm
worth the money.
She's like, I'm only doing it. I told her, I was like, I'm only doing those jokes until the merch is gone, right? I said, but honestly, the reason why I keep doing it, I have tons of other material. It's like I don't know how to start my sets without it.
Right.
So I was trying to come up with something different to do, and what I was trying to when I wrote that bit from the special, my mom's from Louisiana, my dad's from Iran. I was trying, what the point of it was, now you understand my internal conflict of like not liking myself.
And that
saying, of course I don't like myself. Of course I'm insecure.
Yeah.
Both halves of each other don't like each other.
They're forced at each other. Yeah, I like that. And you use that tension throughout the whole set. Like that to me is your lens. That tension is your lens. That insecurity you get from having an American versus an immigrant battle going on in your skull.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Yeah, and here's where I think you took it to the next level. Is you did like doing one of those jokes is fun, right? That's the first step is figuring out that joke, having a good lens to it, having a good format to it, and reducing the number of words you use in order to get it out. That's a real tricky thing that you were able to accomplish, which is you there's not an extra fat word in there. So, but then what you did is you did it 2 more times, which is I love that. When comics, everything comes in threes in comedy, and what that does is it's a contest with the audience, because once they get the game, now they're playing it in their own head. Mm-hmm. They're trying to see if they can play it better than you, if they can play it faster than you, because they all think they're funny. Every one of our audiences have made other people laugh, so they're playing the game with you. So now it's a ballsy thing that you did, which is saying, here's the game I'm about to play 2 more times. See if you can outguess me for these. And what you end up doing is you do what we call a triplet, which is you do the first thing sets the pattern, the second one reestablishes the pattern, and the third one breaks the pattern. And your third one breaks the pattern by using a callback to the second one. So it's a fun comedy little journey that you do here in the beginning. And I thought it was really impressive that you played this game with the audience and use that to get across who you are and what your lens is very quickly.
My mom is from Louisiana and my dad is from Iran. So basically half of me thinks that science is made up. and the other half only majors in computer science. My mom is from Louisiana, my dad is from Iran. So basically, like half of me thinks the election of 2020 was stolen. And the other half created the software to steal the election.
And again, and notice how much time you wait and give them to laugh. I just love that. Why are people in such a hurry?
Yeah.
Like to rush through their stuff. It's great, and it's like in sex where you spend more time on foreplay. It just makes it for a better experience, I think.
I thought you were gonna say like sex that you let her laugh long enough.
Hey, that's personal.
My mom is from Louisiana and my dad is from Iran. So basically, half of me thinks that science is made up. And the other half only majors in computer science.
See, and notice like what's great about that joke is both halves of your reinterpretation get a laugh.
Mm-hmm.
And that's rare. Usually, the payoff is in the second one because there's a bit of a like a loaded gun, and it goes off on the second one, and you are able to get a laugh on both, which is great. Do you get that all the time, or is that just the sweetness of a special?
Usually with those jokes, I pretty much get a laugh on all 6 things that I say on that. It honestly, well, it kind of depends on where I'm performing. If I am performing like in a super rural area, the part where I say like thinks that science is made up, they don't understand why I'm saying that.
The Titan.
Well, it is made up. What's your point?
So they're like, well, yeah, kinda, right? You know, so like,
Truth.
Yeah, so they don't like it just kind of depends where I was performing it. Like, I think where was I where that got a huge laugh? I think I was in Seattle last year,
Right,
and that got a huge laugh. You know what I mean? But
then you're in the flyover states, and it's not.
Yeah,
yeah.
It's like I'm in the middle of some town that has 4,000 people in it. They're kind of like, well, yeah, whatever. Like they don't understand why I'm making that joke, or they don't even get it.
Right.
To per se, right? Like they're not offended by it. They're not. I will tell you this, and this is kind of going. Well, maybe no. Keep asking about this. We'll talk about that. Might come up later.
Well, what I just want really quickly. What made me think of is a lot of times what I'll coach my students. I'll say, especially in the beginning, be real careful when you talk about anything political, because you're immediately going to divide the crowd into two camps, whether you want to or not. And you might, one camp is for you and one camp is against you immediately. And it's easy to do that with a lot of different topics. You can do that with men and women. You could do that with gay and straight. You can do that with different cultures.
Yeah.
But you do that in the beginning right away because it's part of your lens. Is that something that works for you or against you, or does it matter?
It usually works for me because I have both sides, right? So I can speak on both.
Yeah.
I got caught in a show last year where I was in like a smaller town, and a lot of crowd work kept happening because they were so rowdy, and sometimes you just have to do that, right?
You're like playing defense, yeah.
Yeah, and they were like, they wanted me to tell them who I voted for. And I was like, it's not. I said, and I told him, whichever candidate will allow you to buy more merch for me. That's who I voted for. I was like Michael Jordan used to say when they would get mad at him when he wouldn't give his political affiliation, he said, Republicans buy sneakers too. Yeah. Right? Like, so same thing. I was like, whichever one's going to make you buy more shirts at the end of this is who I voted for. So just in your mind, think of that person, and that's who I voted for. Right?
Because it's not our job to piss them off that way.
I'm not going up there.
Yeah, and some comics might disagree with that. They might think that it's our job to speak the truth, and if the truth is against a certain thing, we should fight for that. But
and then listen to my material, and you can probably get an idea of who I voted for.
Right, exactly. And so that's an interesting take. And let's listen to your third. This is your third of the triplet, and this uses the callback to one of the other parts of the triplet, which I think is really cool. That's a neat comedy move to make.
My mom is from Louisiana. My dad is from Iran. So basically, like half of me thinks the election of 2020 was stolen. and the other half created the software to steal the election.
And then you get the applause because you did a nice triplet, and they heard it, they loved it, and you outguessed them. They weren't ahead of you. You were ahead of them, and you pleased them at the end, and that's why you got the applause, because they loved it.
Can I tell you that applause break made the rest of the night
Yes.
easy?
It
So
must
like
have.
you're always kind of nervous about, especially like we're doing one take for this, and
Oh, you only did one show?
we only did one show. So I've been doing some kind of performing on stage since I was 6 years old. Okay. So performing does not give me anxiety. What was giving me anxiety was making sure this was right for the people that invested in it. Right.
Yeah, of
so
course.
I was that's what I was nervous about. But when that happened, when that applause break happened,
Wow.
after the first joke, I was like, this game over. Like
Yeah.
it's, you know what I mean? Like this isn't even the A stuff yet. Like,
Yeah.
like, let's go. Like we've got this now.
That's a really important point, I think, to make about comedy, which is you had a goal in the beginning, and whether this was an organic goal or a purposeful goal, I would call it purposeful afterwards in retrospect, even if it was organic to begin with. But you set up yourself to tell jokes that told the audience who you were right off the bat. You hit them with a triplet, which is a triplet is a basic comedy move. So the idea that you can do a fancy triplet in the front is really cool. Like that's a little show off tactic there, to do a triplet that has a callback in the beginning to break the pattern, and it told them who you were and set the stage for the rest of your special. Like, to me, that's a win. That's a really a great way to plan a special. If you're at home wanting to plan your own special, include that. Have that in there. And it's so much easier said than done, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So, and then the second bit I want to go over that you did, it was a bit of the contrast that you were talking about between the generational American and the immigrant. And you did it's about parenting, and about this is about your parents and the battle between generational Americans and immigrants, and the way we handle different parts of parenting. So let's watch how you set this up.
Right, man, it's like different. Like when you're in this like half immigrant, like half generational American thing, man. Like I notice things differently. And here's what I noticed. One thing is like generation Americans, you guys do some weird things, okay?
So, and I like that. That's your premise. And again, your emotion, which I realize now is built in, which is frustration. And you're beginning to bring up the idea of parenting, and that's the topic. But the real premise that you're bringing up is that it's frustrating when there's a battle going on between those two sides, and that's what I realize is your emotion now. And I like that is a through line through here.
Generation Americans, you guys do some weird things, okay?
And so that's really the setup. Generational Americans do some weird things, and you're misdirecting us into thinking that this has something to do with maybe patriotism. It might have to do with 4th of July. But it, like, a generational American does weird things. Like what, do we wear certain hats there or whatever? So there's a real cool setup that you do that makes us it misdirects us into thinking it's something basic that you're talking about. And then when you hit us with what it is, that's the surprise.
Generation Americans, you guys do some weird things, okay? First of all, you guys kiss your kids on the lips when they're way too old. All right?
And so right there, like that's the first half. There's a heightening device we call contrast. This side does it like this, that side does it like that. And this next set of things you do is a series of contrasts. And what I realize is that you do generational American does it this way, and then there's a side of you that's the immigration side, the side that pushes back on that frustration, that answers that call. And there's a back and forth that you do throughout this whole thing. So the first half of this contrast is you kiss your kids on the lips. Generational Americans kiss their kids on the lips way too old. And it gets a laugh because that's a recognizable thing. We're like, oh shit, we do. That's weird. That's funny. Kiss your kids on the lips is a funny specific. That's something that we just laugh at the phraseology of that. It's a funny way to put it. So that's really clever. And again, using with as few words as possible, you're getting this across, which is kudos for you, because you're not boring us with a long story.
New rule. If the car seat faces forward and you're kissing them on the lips still.
Look at that long pause, that has to come with experience, because I bet you when you first did that joke, you cut yourself off. I mean, maybe you didn't. Maybe you knew enough to pause. But what I would have done is cut myself off for the first one. I would have recorded it and listened and go, oh shit, if I would have let them just laugh, they're going to get that joke on their own and put the pieces together, and that's a more satisfying laugh.
So what a lot of the timing has, it's just been a culmination of years of doing different type of performing, right? Like I was theater major, and I probably was in 100 plays in my life, tons, and all different types of roles, serious roles, the comedic relief, whatever. So that comes from a lot of that. But what was really helpful was I haven't played a ton of theaters in comedy. Okay. And I got to do a handful of theaters, the same size theater as this one, all during 2025. And some of the advice that I got from people was it's going to take a little bit longer for the laugh to travel back to you compared to a club.
Exactly.
So I thought about that, and I thought about like my time because some plays that I did were in massive theaters, 700-800 people in it. And you have the pausing, it all matters. Pausing matters so much.
Mm-hmm.
And especially I got to do as long as a set as I wanted to. You know what I mean? Like I've rented that place out. Yeah. I'm in no hurry. Yep. And
unless you're in a hurry, unless you're doing that to yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. So I was like, well, just play with this. Let's pause. The pausing matters. I love getting laughs or attention or whatever without even saying anything. That's my favorite thing to do on stage right now. I actually really enjoy the silence on stage.
I try to teach that. Embrace the silence.
Yes. I love the uncomfortableness of the silence because I feel like that if I have you that I can be silent and you're still like, what's he about to say? I have you. I can do whatever I want on stage now. So the last 2 years of that was really like forcing myself to be comfortable in the uncomfortableness of the silence, especially when I'm doing long sets. If I have long sets, I know you're going to go on that ride with me.
Yeah.
I have been in sales for about 15 years. And for about 10 of those, I either led, coached, managed teams. And one of the things that I teach and what I do when I'm in sales is I'm silent.
Yeah.
So I ask you something and then I stop talking. I make you respond. Right. And it's a tactic.
Powerful.
Because people will just start talking. They'll just start telling you because no one wants it to be silent. You know what I mean? So
that's great.
What's interesting is I was hoping that this was one of the jokes that you were going to want to talk about. You were asking me in the last joke that we talked about of like not splitting the two sides. And I was going to bring up this joke when you were asking that. One of the things that I had to change is when I first wrote this joke and was performing it, I would say there's a difference between immigrant parents and white parents. And when I would say white parents, the white people will get all uncomfortable.
I like that. Yeah.
And when I changed it to generational American and immigrant, people were like, you know what I mean? It wasn't like an attack. It was just the difference is one, people have been here for a long time and the other haven't. But I'm talking about white people when I say
right. But it's a different way to put it. I love that you figured that out, because a lot of people would just bail on the joke. and they'll just figure, oh, this is racist. I'm not going to talk about it. But you were convinced that it wasn't racist. I mean,
I knew it wasn't because I was
race, but
yeah.
It's not against a race. It's just a comparison. That's what the contrast does. We do it like that. They do it like this. And it's a classic comedy a heightening device that
I
master here.
Yeah, and I got to live both, so I get to talk about both. You know
Exactly.
I mean?
And again, that's punching over. As you're not punching down, you're punching sideways, and that's fine, and that's perfectly acceptable. And let's keep watching because that one that's what we call when you say I love if the car seat faces forward, pause, pause, pause. It's time to give that one up. That's that's what we call a problem solve. And that's a heightening device where you give a fake solution to a problem that you noticed. And it's also got recognition because we recognize the idea of a car seat either goes one way or the other. And I love that they have to put that together in their brain that if it's facing one way, don't kiss them on the lips. And that's a really funny, it's a great way to get a laugh.
Visual, yeah.
Yeah. So then here's another first half of a contrast. And again, this is interesting. Now that you give us that insight about the white America versus generational America, this really makes sense.
Another thing is like generational Americans, like girls, they will call their father daddy way too old of an age.
So that gets a decent laugh. That one, daddy is the punchline there. So you might have let a little air out of the balloon on that one. And that's why the laughter was because I think that's a funny laugh. The daddy is what you get the laugh on. And that's recognition and funny specifics. And to be honest, that's kind of more like a premise than it is a punchline, and you're still getting a laugh on it, which is kind of cool. They're with you. You can tell that this crowd is with you.
I learned that in college. I was hanging out with this little white girl.
And again, this is what I teach. There's a general statement you make, and then a specific that you bring to it, which reinforces the top. You said they call their daddy way too much at an older age. And then here's a specific story that reinforces that. And to me, that's a great way to do it. It's to give a general idea that gets a laugh, and then bring it to a specific that makes it personal.
She's like, hey, man, I got to leave for a little bit. I got to go hang out with my daddy. And I was like, excuse me? And I was like, but I ain't judging, girl. These books are expensive. You do you. You do you.
So that is a cut back to, which you cut back to that moment, and then you do wordplay, which is daddy. Daddy is either like your father or else your pimp or your man. Funny specifics and recognition again, which is you're good at. I always teach to like if you can be more specific, you're going to get a bigger laugh, and you seem to have gotten that, and you do that a lot. And I like these books are expensive, and that's really funny. And I'm not judging you. Again, that's a different way to interpret the word daddy. And so it's a fun call back answer. It's the second half of the contrast, which is generational Americans do it this way. Immigrants do it this way, and immigrants fight back on that like it's almost like the alien that comes from another place and notices things that we don't notice about ourselves.
Yeah.
What's the evolution of that joke? Like, can you remember what you started doing it on stage, like on an open mic, and how it got to the final version?
So I knew what the ending the whole point of that joke was trying to talk about how and I can't speak for all immigrant parents, I just speak about my father, is how private he was about a lot of stuff, right? So I was like, well, how can I tie this all in together? And I wanted to be able to tell the story about I don't know if you're gonna talk about this or not, but I tell the story about my cousin telling me where babies come from I
don't get to that. No, yeah.
Okay, so at a young age, my cousin on my American side of the family tells me where babies come from. Right. And I wanted to be able to tell that story. I was like, well, how do I tie all this in together? Right. So it's like, okay, here we go. It's because on generational American side of the family, they talk about some weird ass shit. You know what I mean? So like, how can I get to that point? Well, let me start calling out some differences between the weird stuff that I noticed, the closeness that they talk about, moms being besties with their daughter. You know what I mean? Like that's not something you see in like immigrant families. They might love they love their kids, obviously, but they're not like, hey man, tell me about that boy you hooked up with. You know what I mean? Like that's not like it's like go to school.
There's a different list of priorities.
And so that's where
a classic contrast. That's a really great use of contrast. Generational Americans do it like this, Iranians do it like that, or Iranian immigrants do it like that.
Yeah.
And to find the humor in that contrast, it's great. And that's what this bit's all about. And that set you up for the other one, for the birth story.
For like telling, like the birds and the bees, talking about sex, everything like that. Like, and then so to me, where it's like, well, how do I come up with something to give an example about like my dad being private and him only talking about like mundane things when it comes to that type of stuff? Well, that's where I get with the joke about the weather.
Yeah.
Right. Like people will tell you, like they'll ask you like, how true is this? Like, well, my dad never told me about the weather. Right. But I need an example of what's the most mundane thing that someone could talk about.
But here's like where I'd argue in your favor. Yes, that didn't specifically happen, but in general and thematically it happened. And what you're heightening is how about a factor about your dad. And the truth about your dad isn't going to get the laugh. The exaggerated truth about your dad is what's going to get the laugh.
Absolutely.
And I wholeheartedly sign on to that. If these reflect real truths about yourself, exaggerate the shit out of them, as long as that reflects a truthful part of who you are or who your dad is. And I love that. And let's just watch the end of this bit here.
The other thing is like you guys like generational Americans, y'all will talk about like deep things with your kids. You'll talk about like weird things. I blame Gilmore Girls for that. Like
that's a fun. I thought that was kind of like a bit of a bait and switch, where you throw in the Gilmore Girls at the last second, and that makes us laugh. We recognize the reference. We recognize like why that might be the fault. And then you give us an example.
All these white moms just I'm besties with my daughter. No, chill out.
And again, that's the other side of the contrast, right? You're going back and forth. And
nothing like a 20-year-old pop culture reference, right?
But sometimes that's what you got to make, in order, like you're not making a Gilmore Girls joke. There's a reference that we all get. You're not like you discovered the Gilmore Girls. And
and it's because my generation that are now parents, grew up on that
get
show.
That exactly, exactly. So here's the final part of it.
Like immigrant parents don't talk to you about things.
And this is the point you were making before about this bit, which sets up about immigrants don't talk to you about things, and about your dad.
They don't talk to you about deep things. I remember one time I went to my dad. I said, Dad, tell me what it was like growing up in Iran.
And again, this is I like this joke. This one is an impersonation. It's sort of a cut back to your conversation with him, more recognition, and then a callback. And the impersonation is what I think where your acting comes into play and where you get a lot of laughs. And this is something that improvisation teaches you, which is sometimes you're not being clever, like you're not doing wordplay, or you're not doing clever word stuff. You're imitating a person to a level that's funny because you recognize that personality trait in that person. And we recognize people who are like your dad. And when you nail it, you get a laugh at that.
And he looks at me and he goes, you want to know what it was like growing up in Iran, huh?
Again, pause. Most people wouldn't pause there. Most people wouldn't pause there. You want to know, and then you would finish off. But you knew there was going to be a laugh there. And again, record your sets over and over again so that you can find those laughs, because those are valuable laughs. And again, you're not going anywhere. Just so give it to them.
You want to know what it was like growing up in Iran, huh?
And then this is great. What I love about this is you repeat it. But this is like an old joke that we used to do where you repeat the sentence, but you emphasize a different part of the sentence, as if it's a new sentence. And this one you use you. Yes. So you want to know. And just that one little twist that you do gets them to laugh because we get what your dad's doing.
Oh, you want to know what it was like growing up in Iran, huh?
Right, and this is the setup. This is the setup for he's going to tell us about death. He's going to tell us about dead kids. He's going to tell us about war-ravaged country, bombs coming in and scaring and interrupting dinner.
And I was like, yeah, Dad. He was like,
Again, right? You're like stealing laughs from these people. It's great. It's like that I teach this so much is like use the silence to your advantage. And if you have the balls to do it, you'll get them to laugh because there's so much tension in that. And if you don't have the balls to do that, you're missing out on these laughs.
in Iran, sometimes it is hot. Sometimes it is cold. And sometimes it is just right. And I'm like, you just tell me that Iran has seasons? Is that what you told me?
That's great. And again, it's a back and forth fight, back and forth, and you're doing impersonation, it's you're doing a reinterpretation in that one, which is you're taking what he says and you're reinterpreting it to mean, oh, you mean seasons. Got it. Funny joke. And I don't want to take up too much of your time, but I really I loved breaking those down and trying to see sort of where the mechanics of what you did are underneath the thematic things that you were doing. And I thought they worked well together, and I thought it made for a good special. And I wish you the best of luck with this.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we were super happy with how it came out, like you talked about, like a lot of like the improv of wanting to like be in the moment and stuff like that, I will tell this to you, because you wanted to ask like about like the joke writing process.
Yeah.
The last part of the show, so the last like 3 minutes of it, I never did until that night.
No way.
Yeah. So
ballsy.
I wanted to make, in my mind, this special was a love letter to my parents, but mostly to my dad.
Yeah.
Right. Like I wanted
that reads. Yeah, that reads.
For that to come across. And so the last joke, I wanted it to be 100% authentic in the moment. I didn't want it to come off as something that I had performed 150 times.
Right.
And I didn't know what emotion it was going to bring to me and or the audience. But whatever emotion was going to come out of it, I wanted it to be real and authentic in that moment. So when I was telling the producer and the director of the special, he's like, man, that's kind of ballsy. I hope you're ready for it or whatever. I was like, well, I think it's going to be a big risk, but I think that if it goes over the way I'm hoping it will, it'll be a massive reward.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. And what I liked about it too, was it included a callback. And when you end on a callback, I mean, I teach that all the time. It's just a pro move, and it gives everybody the satisfaction of being part of the creation of that moment. And so when you look back at it, are you happy with your special? Are there any things that you would have done differently now that you've done it and you know what you're doing? Or actually, you've done it twice, if you talk about the first one as well.
I'm very happy with it. I think the next day after we filmed it, I told my wife, I said, if I don't want this to be the pinnacle of my comedy career, but if it ends up being it, then last night I can walk away and say I'm happy with what I've accomplished. And I had two goals going into the special, right? The night of the filming. One, I wanted to sell it out, which we did that. And then two, I wanted a real standing ovation, not one where like, oh, you hang out.
He's done.
Like, not one where you kind of like hang out and kind of egg it on, like, or anything like that.
What?
Yeah, or like, come on, let's go. I didn't want anything like that. I wanted like a genuine thing. Right. Happen, and we got the standing ovation. Like Great. It was like as soon as he said my like thanks for coming or whatever, the people shot up or whatever. So those were the two things that I wanted. and I'm so over the moon happy with the way it turned out.
Yeah.
Like I mean, it looks like a Netflix special.
Yeah, especially like having been there versus what they came up with at the end. I don't think people who aren't in the business realize how much editing is involved, how much film, like going from different cameras, and doing close-ups versus wide shots, and it all is seamless and it's nicely done.
Yeah, and so that's I cannot ask for could not especially as like an independently produced
Yeah.
comedy special that was done on I don't know how much they paid for it, right? That's not in any of my business, but the knowing that it was not some massive production company, I think visually, and I'll say this, I think visually, I'm not going to talk about my performance in it, but just the visually, the production part, it's the best one, independently one to come out of our scene.
Yeah.
In my opinion, the way it looks. I'm not talking about what I did.
I know what you're saying. Yeah, and I agree with you. I feel like well, and the thing is what you're talking about is only really noticeable when it's not up to par, and then it stands in the way of you enjoying the comedy. What you're saying is that it was at a level where it wasn't an issue. In fact, it was almost a positive on the side of it. It looked good, and but it didn't. The lighting didn't go. Why does he look so yellow? Or the
audio.
Like I can't hear the audience. The audience isn't laughing or whatever. Yeah, it's great.
We always ask our guests one specific question about the writing process, and the question goes that if you're trying to teach young comics to write jokes, if they have an hour a day to work on their joke writing and to work on their craft, what is the equivalent of going to the gym and doing 100 push-ups but for your comedy chest? What kind of drills, exercises, writing techniques, free writing type examples would you say if you have an hour a day to work on your comedy? What do you tell a young comic to do?
Pull things from your life, like write about your life. We got enough jokes about Uber Eats. We've got enough jokes about Tinder. We've got enough jokes about
Southwest,
any random things, right? Write about what's specific to you, because what is specific to you is what's interesting. That's what's unique. That's what's different. That's what's going to set you apart. It's what you're going to be passionate about, right? It's what you're going to be passionate about, and then the audience is going. I want to watch comedy. I want to leave and be like, I know that person. That's why so many people come up to you and talk to you after shows, because they think we're buddies, because they just listen to you talk about who you were for 45 minutes to an hour.
If you did it right.
Yeah, if you did it right. Absolutely. Yeah. Like I got everyone coming up to me asking me about the Iranian American conflict. I don't know. Like, you think I'm an expert? You know what I mean? Like, but they want to talk to me about it.
All those guys. Tell us about it.
Absolutely. Like, tell us what's going on really over there. I have no idea.
Interesting.
I got one final question about, it seems like you really incubated this one, and then like the conflicting personalities really unlocked then a lot of the whole special hour long. And it seemed like a takeaway for me was like to start with something deep, personal, and vulnerable in an uncomfortable space, and you really grew all the whole special around it. So I guess how do we translate that into a teachable moment for comics?
I think you're going to find your best jokes out of like a vulnerable state, right? Like, I want to walk away that I believe what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Okay. Like being authentic. So I'll give you an example of this. Oftentimes I will do shows in like smaller towns. Okay. And they'll give you like an opener from that town, which is great. Well, a lot of times those openers are really, really gross. Like, not gross human beings, but like their jokes are extremely gross. And I was telling one of the people about it one time. I was like, you're talking about all this stuff that you're doing with women. I'm going to be honest with you, and this isn't a joke. I said, I'm not trying to be mean. I was like, have you done those things? And he was like, well, no, not really. I said, yeah. I said, and I know that. And the audience knows that.
Yep.
It does not come across that you're this ladies' man. So if you're not being authentic or whatever, the audience doesn't, first of all, no one really wants to hear your grossness, right? But even if they did want to hear that, let's say they did, they want to believe that it actually happened. Yeah. So be vulnerable. Talk about the things that are vulnerable to you. Like, I talked about in the special something that I was like, I told people on stage, I was like, or when I tell the joke, I was like, I'm gonna tell you guys something that I've never told anyone before. Absolutely true. I've never told anybody that stuff until I started doing that joke. So like, you know what I mean? Like it's an embarrassing thing, but if I can be real on stage, you'll get people to kind of follow you a little bit more.
Yeah, and we've all experienced things that we're not proud of and things that are embarrassing. And to watch somebody talk about their version of that and make jokes about it teaches us a different way to deal with our own embarrassing moments. And to me, that's part of the job of a comic is to teach you how to deal with life's griefs. Well, congratulations. I wish you the best of
Thank you
luck.
very much.
I'm so glad you came on the podcast and helped us with the breakdown and a little bit of insight of what goes into creating a special like that.
Thank you so much. Ton of fun, guys.
Cool, man. Thanks, Michael. Appreciate you, buddy.
Absolutely, guys.